A new wrinkle in RFRA as the Senate makes a political chess move merging the Pastor Protection Act and the First Amendment Defense Act. Expect controversy to ensue. And Allen Peake's medical marijuana bill isn't the only one addressing the use of pot in Georgia. We'll look at other measures aimed at decriminalization. Lawmakers starts right now. Good evening and welcome to Lawmakers. I'm Bill Nigut. It's day 22 of the 2016 legislative session. There are some serious topics up for discussion at the Gold Dome. Shelby Lin has all the details in her Capitol report tonight. Hi, Shelby.
Good evening, Bill. Yes, abortion is a serious topic. Leading the Capitol report tonight, 2 abortion bills in the House. One would require better record keeping for minors receiving abortions. The other would make it illegal for anyone to profit from the sale of aborted fetuses.
Well, if you remember back this past summer, there was a lot of controversy addressing sale of embryos and fetuses that made quite a bit of press. Out of that, I had several of my constituents call me saying, Wendell, is this possible to be done in Georgia? And I was saying, no.
Representative Wendell Willard is a sponsor of HB 762, and he admits it was inspired by the Planned Parenthood controversy last October. An anti-abortion group leaked a video that claimed to show Planned Parenthood was selling fetuses for profit. That video has since been discredited, and those who leaked it are now facing charges. But Willard says in reviewing Georgia law, he found nothing that would outlaw the selling of fetuses for profit in Georgia.
So what we're doing, ladies and gentlemen, is making a public policy of this state. Acknowledge the fact that there is an abortion, whether it be a natural abortion or medical abortion, that fetus is not to be used as a means of compensation.
As the gentleman stated, it requires the consent of the parent. Now, the parent that's giving consent is the parent that's chosen to have an abortion performed. It's the mother that's aborted her child. So that's the mother that's giving consent for these organs to be used, is it not?
I would say the people doing the research who are being normally compensation for what they're doing in research, that's not prohibited by this. If there's something to be done as far as a payment going back to the doctor, or payment going back to the mother, those are prohibited conduct.
After some debate, the House approved the bill on a vote of 166 to 2. It now goes on to the Senate for review. Also in the House today, another debate on a second measure dealing with abortion. It's HB 555. Representative Joyce Chandler of Grayson authored the bill. Grayson says the state needs better records on minors who are getting abortions.
Well, I've been in schools where, unfortunately, in my opinion, in 1 year, with students with whom I dealt, there were more than 11 abortions. So we're not receiving accurate information. This bill calls for the juvenile court clerk to send the information annually to the administrative office of the courts.
Representative Darlene Taylor of Thomasville supports the bill.
When we make decisions up here, we have to have knowledge to know what's going on. Without the correct data, there's no way to do that. That's why I feel like this bill is important. It's something that we need to be able to track and know and understand. How can you and I make decisions without the facts?
But there was opposition too. Representative Nikki Randall of Macon is against it.
I think this bill will have an adverse effect. I think there are some unintended consequences. I have much respect for the author, and I think she's a woman that wants to do well by the citizens of our state. But I don't think this bill is a way to do it. I think this bill is simply a solution looking for a problem.
But that opposition was not enough. The measure passed on a vote of 119 to 51. It now goes to the Senate for consideration. Meanwhile, in the Senate today, lawmakers gave their final approval to the 2016 amended budget after weeks of wrangling between the House and Senate over the numbers.
The Senate version of the amended budget that we sent over to the House last week, that's with the green cover, and then you'll find an amendment that the House has taken our budget, and in negotiation with us since last week, we've settled all the differences between the two budgets.
Now, following the Senate passage of the amended budget today, Bill, it now heads over to the governor for his approval. Meanwhile, the work continues on Governor Deal's 2017 spending plan. That's it from the Capitol, Bill. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Shelby, thanks so much. So let's turn to our guests. Tonight I'm joined by Senator William Ligon, a Republican from Brunswick, and Senator Mike Crane, a Republican from Noonan. Thank you both for being here. Senator Ligon, we're glad to have you back. Senator Crane, welcome to Lawmakers.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
If we can, I'd like to start with a conversation about what happened in the Senate Rules Committee yesterday to the so-called Pastor Protection Act. And just to back up a step, the Pastor Protection Act is the bill that Speaker Ralston conceived of before the session started. It would quite simply make it clear that no clergyman or woman has to marry someone they don't want to marry, gays, lesbians, whatever. He apparently did that because he thought that was the most palatable and acceptable religious freedom bill. Is that a fair statement? At least what you think he had in mind?
We think so.
Okay.
Right.
So it passes by big numbers in the House.
Correct.
Thinking, okay, maybe we'll block the other aggressive bills. And it comes to the Senate Rules Committee, and your colleague, Senator Greg Kirk's First Amendment
Defense Act.
Defense Act.
Right.
Which does what?
It provides that government will not take any action against an individual or organization based on their views of marriage. And it was added on to the Speaker's bill and made a part of that bill now.
So it creates, assuming, and do you have any reason to think that with those two merged, that they won't pass the Senate? Your body seems always quite open to passing the religious freedom bills.
Sure, and we believe that it will pass the Senate. It may come up for a vote this week, and we, based on the vote in the Rules Committee and what I believe the temperature of the caucus is, it will pass.
And goes back to the House, Senator Crane, where at least the leadership has said, we don't want any more of these religious freedom bills. Are we headed for a major confrontation over this?
Well, I'm not sure I'd characterize it as a confrontation, but last year we sent the RFRA bill over to them intact.
Josh McCoon, Senate Bill 129, right?
And what you see is this response, a very, very narrow response, yielding all types of ground in religious freedoms and just providing protection for one group of individuals in the state. And so there's a lot of resistance to the Speaker's bill as it came over, as it was individually. And so Senator Kirk's move to get his bill back in front of the House for consideration, I think, was strategic on his part. The House seems to be locked down on giving the members over there an opportunity to voice their opinions on either one of these measures, honestly.
Judiciary Chair Wendell Willard has made it clear, at least so far, that he's not eager to take up SB 129, the Josh McCoon bill, again.
Right.
Although there is a House version of that bill over on that side as well.
Which we would love to see.
So the question becomes, is this in the long run going to blow up both of these measures? And are you going to come back to where you were last year, where you can't agree on it, and so nothing passes?
Well, we don't know, and certainly the Senate is going to do its work in protecting freedoms of religion within our state, and we're going to send this bill over to the House, and we're going to work it, and I believe that the people in the state who have great concerns about this are going to work it as well, and hopefully the House will take some action on it. I think that they'll consider it. What they ultimately do with it, no one knows right now, but I think it's there for them to look at and seriously consider.
I'm sorry. To be sure that we know, were each of you supportive of Senator Kirk's measure to begin with?
Yes.
Yes.
You both were?
We did.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, great. Let's talk, we'll watch that unfold.
Sure.
I mean, for journalists, that's the kind of scenario we love because it is guaranteed to cause some real headbutting, don't you think?
It has the potential for that happening, but let's see what happens. It may not play out that way. You never know.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit, Senator Ligon. You have a measure with all of the attention that's been focused in this state on testing, student testing, with the fact that the No Child Left Behind Act has been modified in such a way that states don't have to require the same level of numbers of tests they did in the past. You have a measure in the Senate that takes that one step further. Talk about it.
Well, as you know, under the law as it exists now, we're moving to a system where teachers will be they'll receive 50% of their evaluation based on the test results. And this is putting pressure on our teachers. It is putting a lot of pressure on the students. We're even testing children with cognitive disabilities, and the stress that it's putting on them and their parents are not right. And there's several concerns with this. When you're looking at tests like this, you need to make sure that they're verifiable. That is, that we know exactly what we're testing, and that they're reliable, meaning that it's going to test this every time. Well, when you look at these testing, it becomes clear that we're focusing so much on the teacher's performance, and we're placing so much emphasis on this test, and it may not be exactly accurate. We may be measuring other things. For example, each child is different. Children have many different experiences. One child comes from a good home where there's support for the classroom and for the teacher. Another child comes from a home that's broken. He may not know where he's getting his next meal or where he's going to spend the night. These things influence that child's performance on the test. And studies have shown that a teacher may account for between 7 to 13 to 15% of a child's performance on a standardized test. But these other factors can weigh in so much more.
So given all that, what does your bill do?
My bill brings this down to 10% of the results of the test on the teacher's evaluation. It also gives parents of children who have disabilities the option of opting out of that, so that their children who may not understand exactly what's going on don't have to go through the stress of that test.
So, Senator Crane, we hear teachers all the time expressing concern about the very things that Senator Ligon is talking about, that they're evaluated on test scores and they have control over very few of the factors that weigh into student testing performance. So, good idea that Senator Ligon has here?
I think it more properly weights the impact of test scores from the standpoint of a teacher's evaluation. I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Do you have what are the teachers organizations saying about you?
Well, they like certain parts of it, and they initially gave some support, and then we also have a provision that allows parents to opt their children out, because many people don't
opt them out
of that type of testing, because there are other tests that are available that really give a much better measure, such as the Iowa Skills Test. And parents should have a voice in this, and we should give them the option, just as we're helping teachers and other students with the bill.
So that throws me a little bit.
Yeah.
What's the point of a standardized test if it's not a standardized test?
Well, let me tell you what we're measuring here. We're testing just on a grade level. So let's say if you have a child that is really gifted, is really smart, and so he goes into that grade, say the 8th grade, but he's doing it 10th grade work. He's not going to show much progress because he's already at the top, and yet that teacher's going to be rated on that, and he's going to be evaluated on the fact that he may not have shown much progress. Or if you have a child that is underperforming, say at below grade level, he may go in at 5th grade level, in the 8th grade, but yet he makes tremendous advances to the 7th grade, but yet he's tested on the 8th grade level. That's not a fair evaluation for that child either, or for that teacher. And these tests that we're administering, they're not measuring, they're not norm-based tests where you see exactly where that child is.
So I can imagine why perhaps some of the teachers' organizations that were supportive of you are now a little bit more concerned. Sure. You're really changing. You're suggesting a big change in how testing happens. Do you really think you have much chance to get that passed by this
Well, I think we're going to...
That portion.
Well, that part of the bill, I mean, there's another bill that the chairman of the Education Committee is carrying that mirrors this in some respects. He doesn't go quite to the degree that we do.
Right.
And we'll be working with him, and we may take some provisions out of this bill and add it to that. We'll see what happens there, but it's certainly in play.
Senator Crane, because one of the reasons we enjoy having you all on this show is to give you a chance to talk about measures that you're interested in this year. You have a couple of bills that we ought to talk about for a couple of minutes. One of them is a bill that you're calling for a constitutional amendment to do what?
Well, three of them are constitutional.
Three of them.
They are all constitutional amendments because we have some procedures in the Senate, and the House does also, whereby you can suspend your rules. And in the suspension of the rules, anything goes. And so we get things like hotel motel taxes at 11:58 at night on sine die, things we haven't seen before. And I'd like to protect Georgians from that type of political process. And I think if we put it in the Constitution, I know if we put it in the Constitution, that type of shenanigans would be dampened a lot.
And so you are proposing, in terms of that, just that alone, the last minute throwing into the mix a measure that hasn't been perhaps vetted the way you'd like it to be. What's your proposal?
Well, the proposal is that any bill, any type of legislation under consideration for final passage, this is the last go at it, has to rest on desk at least 2 days, which means it's in the public view for at least 48 hours. It gives people an opportunity to see what's going on under the gold dome, lets people get a clear picture of what's really trying to be done legislatively. I think the voters would overwhelmingly support that in a constitutional referendum.
It is interesting. We can talk about whether constitutional amendment it seems to be. I suspect you're going to have to work with the legislature to make them understand why it's a constitutional amendment. But it is interesting, Senator Ligon, that over the years, I mean, I covered the Capitol for a very long time, we tend to wake up on what would be day 41 and see some things that happened at the last second that nobody anticipated at all. I guess your colleague, Senator Crane, is suggesting his measure would alleviate that problem.
Sure. Well, and he's picked up on a concern that other legislators have voiced. And in fact, in response to this and concerns that other legislators have had about this process, we have initiated a study committee within the Senate for some self-examination to see how we're doing things and what we might be able to do to improve our processes so that it is more transparent, so that citizens have more assurance that we're vetting bills properly and giving them an opportunity to see what's going on.
All right, because we have to get to a break, I do want to ask you this last question. Why a constitutional amendment? You're raising the bar for passage. It's going to be harder to get, I assume, that measure through. Why not just introduce a bill that would create a state statute about this? Or can it be done through a rule of either or both bodies?
Well, it could, to answer your question, Bill, yeah, it could be rules. It could be just a simple piece of legislation. But the one thing about those type of things, they're easy to change, or much easier to change. And I think the legacy we should leave for the state of Georgia is a process that supersedes the personalities.
Okay, so again, if you'll allow me to go one more step on that, sure. We hear from Republicans all the time, less government is better government. And you've now got 3 measures that you've proposed that would add 3 amendments to the state constitution. Are you at all concerned that you're kind of going against a traditional Republican feeling that we should limit government?
Well, considering all 3 of those constitutional amendments would limit the power of individuals within government, I think they're excellent ideas.
All right. Thank you. Look, we're going to come back and have more conversation in just a minute, but we want to take a look at something that happened today in the Senate. The Senate passed a bill that would prohibit banks from discriminating against firearm shops. Senator Jesse Stone is the bill's sponsor. He says the measure is necessary as a defense for gun shop owners. Let's look at what he said.
We need to protect honest, law-abiding business people who directly or indirectly create jobs for nearly 6,000 workers in Georgia, and contribute nearly $1 billion to our state economy. Most importantly, to protect and undergird the Second Amendment rights that are guaranteed to all of our citizens.
We're going to be back with more conversation, but first, how well do you think you know your lawmakers? Dale Rutledge is a Republican who represents House District 109. He was first sworn into the General Assembly in 2013. Rutledge grew up on a small family farm in McDonough and is a third-generation native of Henry County. When he watches soccer, he roots for Arsenal, and he has Egypt's pyramids on his bucket list. His wife's cousin is La Bamba star Lou Diamond Phillips. More lawmakers in a moment.
It all started with the discovery of one enormous bone. That could only have come from a dinosaur. Absolutely amazing. What a thrill it must have been to see it when it was alive.
Tonight at 8 on Why Wednesday, only on GPB.
On this date, February 17, 1854, Governor Herschel Johnson signed legislation for a ballot initiative giving Georgia voters a choice on whether Milledgeville should remain the state capital. In the 1854 general election, Milledgeville got nearly 50,000 votes to hold on to its capital status. Atlanta came in second with about 30,000 votes. Macon came in third with less than 4,000 votes. It wasn't until April of 1868 that Atlanta became Georgia's fifth capital city. Welcome back to Lawmakers. Joining us tonight, Senator William Ligon and Senator Mike Crane. You're from Metro Atlanta, but you're from down there on the seacoast, down by Brunswick. I'll bet there are a lot of your constituents who wish they never had moved the capital to the city of Atlanta.
I tell you, every time I drive up here, a 5-hour drive makes me wish it were in Atlanta. So.
I want to talk very briefly about where we stand on medical marijuana. Sure. You know, we continue, it appears, the legislature continues to sort of tie itself into knots over this thorny problem of how do we provide relief for families who have children who have terrible problems. Yes. And yet we can't seem to get a clear through line on what should and shouldn't be allowed. So, Senator Crane, first of all, are you sympathetic to Alan Peake's call for allowing limited production of cannabis oil in Georgia, or do you think that's a bridge too far?
Well, I'm very sympathetic to the needs of Georgians who are being kept away from substances that honestly help their kids deal with very debilitating circumstances. My advice oftentimes is this: we need to fix this at the federal level with a reclassification, a simple reclassification of the drug that they claim has no medical use. But there are countless Georgians who could prove that there is a medical efficacy in the treatment of their children and their loved ones. How we move forward in Georgia without going down the road of Colorado is one that we're treading very lightly.
What is the road that Colorado has taken that concern? I mean, clearly they've legalized marijuana for all reasons. And what do you think has happened to the state as a result of that?
Well, if you just go back in history, Colorado started where we are now. I mean, with regards to medical marijuana. And it really was a very, they talk about the velocity of change and how things, almost like within an hourglass, things seem to speed up so fast. We're at that point now that from where we are now, I mean, just last year we wrangled over what conditions would qualify for a prescription to this, to medical marijuana, to cannabidiol oil. And now we're trying to triple that list. I mean, so you see what happens when you open Pandora's box.
It's been described as a slippery slope, Senator. So the question, there have been bills recently. In fact, there's one right now that's resting. Is it in the Senate or the House? There's one. We do have a measure right now to essentially decriminalize the possession of 1 ounce of marijuana or less. Advocates of that say it eliminates all these thorny questions about, how you get cannabis oil. So what do you think about that idea?
I think it's a mistake because would then be legitimizing a drug which is subject to significant abuse and which results in lives being destroyed. And you see the problems that they're having in Colorado. And we just want to keep that out of Georgia. We don't want to walk down that road.
So, and assuming that Alan Peake moves his measure and it comes to you all, where do you stand on that?
Well, I personally do not believe that we should expand any more use of marijuana than we already have.
And what about production in a limited supply?
Production either.
Okay.
I mean, I think that we need to draw a line in the sand. It's illegal under federal law. If you start trying to do that, you create all kind of legal implications and problems. We don't need to be dealing with that as a state.
What do you say to those parents who are treating their children right now with cannabis oil and it's working, but they've got to bring it in surreptitiously?
Well, apparently there are provisions that allow it to occur, and we've made allowances for them now in Georgia, and their children are being treated. We're not saying that we shouldn't look at marijuana as a source of medicines to address problems that people have. We should be able to do that, but we need to go about it the right way. And I think Senator Crane is correct. It begins at the federal level, so that there can be proper controls and proper measurements to make sure that, one, you're getting something that really does the job that it's claimed to do, that it's safe, that it's not grown in some backyard laboratory, and that it doesn't create more damage.
Okay, with just have a couple minutes left. Senator Crane, you walked in here tonight with some late-breaking news. The NBC Wall Street Journal poll, which was just released late this afternoon, had some interesting findings on the Republican side of the race. Since you brought it to our attention, why don't you explain it?
Well, that national poll for the first time shows Senator Ted Cruz in the lead nationally in the presidential primary. I think that's very exciting as one of his early supporters here in the state. We're very proud of his accomplishments. And what we see is the trajectory of his campaign. While all polling's kind of nebulous, I would say, I think it shows a consistent move in a path toward victory for Senator Cruz in the presidential.
Well, one of the reasons I bring it up, aside from the fact that presidential politics is so fascinating right now, is they're all headed for Georgia. South Carolina votes on Saturday for GOP president, and then they're heading our way.
That's right.
What this suggests is the possibility, Senator Ligon, that Ted Cruz could be coming into this state. We'll see what happens in South Carolina, but with some wind at his back.
That's right, and we think that he's doing well and will continue to do well, and I believe that he's going to win Georgia.
He's got a huge volunteer organization.
He does.
Here.
He has put together a tremendous grassroots organization. He's done that in other states as well, and I think that's going to ultimately carry him to victory.
Could either of you, I know you're both supportive of Cruz and have been on his team for a while, could either of you be okay if it turns out that Donald Trump is the party's nominee? Does he represent values that are okay by you?
I think that if he turns out to be the nominee, that I will support him. I believe that he is much better than the other candidates running in the Democratic
Than either
Party.
Clinton or Sanders.
Right. That's right.
Senator Crane?
Only if he nominates Senator Cruz for the Supreme Court.
Well, as long as we're talking about campaigns, we're going to be watching you in the months ahead as you look to secure, you hope, the Republican nomination in the 3rd district for that congressional seat. So we'll keep our eyes on you, and appreciate you both being here tonight. It's a pleasure to have you here. So that about wraps it up for us again tonight. It's day 22 at the legislature today. We've only got 18 days to go in this year's session. For more political news, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GPB News. You can check out our website at gpb.org/lawmakers. And remember, on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock and Fridays at 3 o'clock, we bring you a live Political Rewind radio broadcast with the best, I say the best, a team of political insiders evaluating the week's political news. We'll be on again Friday at 3 o'clock, the day before Republicans vote in South Carolina and Democrats caucus in Nevada. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Bill Nigut. See you tomorrow.